We're just still waiting for a couple of more to jump on, trustees. We're not quite at a quorum yet. Oh, now we are with Mac. Hey, Mac.
Good evening, all. Hello.
Hi there.
And we do have a quorum, but why don't we just wait one more moment because it's still a little bit before 5. All right, everybody, why don't we jump in? Happy Monday. I'd like to call to order the Springfield Technical Community College Board of Trustees regular meeting of Monday, November 28th, 2022. Nanette, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mary Kate Murin,
Present.
Janae McDonald,
Present.
Elizabeth Posito is out, Glerisbel Garcia Figueroa,
Present.
Tonya Butler Perez is also out. Samalid Hogan,
Present.
Bill Johnson,
Present.
Norm Roldan,
Present.
Jeff Sattler,
Present.
and Max Starks.
Present.
Great, thank you, Nanette. Before we move on, I wanted to take a moment so all of us could have a moment of silence for Trustee Maurice Lindsay. You know, we lost him, unfortunately, on November 7th. He was our alumni trustee and had been with us to 2020. So I just want to take a moment of silence, please, everyone. Thank you. His passion and love for the college community is going to be greatly missed. And I know his family and friends are also going to miss him. So I just wanted to extend a heartfelt thank you for all of his hard work before we move on. It's a little bit hard to do some work after that, everybody, but do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting that was held on October 24th, 2022?
So
Madam
moved.
Chair, so move.
Second.
Great. Discussion? Hearing none. Nanette, would you please call for the approval of the minute meetings for October 24th?
Yes, your name, Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Elizabeth Posito, Glerisbel Garcia Figueroa,
Yes.
Tonya Butler Perez, Samalid Hogan,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Norm Roldan,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. We have a couple committee reports. We'll start off with the Committee on Internal External Relations that was held on November 7th. Trustee McDonald, would you be able to give us an update?
Thank you. We had department overviews by Dr. DeBurley, who talked about some of the math skills grants that were discussed, 1.24 million awarded since 2019. That grant has covered things like equipment, but not the installation or the IT staffing expenses. We received an update from Student Affairs and providing an update on the success funds and an ETCHI Standard 5 projection. And those resources were allocated with the intention of being spent on personnel and a direct connection to support and services to improve student outcomes. We also received an update from Andrea with two major areas focusing on fall enrollment, which is positively holding steady, and strategic cost containment required for sustainability. And then we also received an IT update in regards to the $8 million budget as it relates to the 5-year capital plan. And those funds are being used to support upgrades, replacement, and legacy systems, in addition to IT operations, new strategic initiatives, and flexible classrooms and digital technologies. And in the spring of 2023, we're expecting upgrades to this plan, which many of us heard at the retreat back in September. We received a strategic plan update from Trustee Olasax-Basito. And then Dr. Cook also reshared the Cyber Center of Excellence award and the presentation that was done down at Union Station. And we closed out with the Gratitude and Grit video, which was shared at the, now I'm drawing a blank, which was shared at the
gala,
Foundation
right?
Gala. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. And that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you so much, Trustee McDonald. Really appreciate it. Do I hear a motion to accept the Committee on Internal External Relations meeting minutes that was held on November 7th?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Great. Second. Discussion. Hearing none. Nanette, would you please call the roll to accept the internal external meeting minutes of November 7th?
Yes, Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Betty Esposito, Gladys Beck Garcia, Figueroa.
Yes.
Tonya Butler Perez, Samali Hogan,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Norm Rodan,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Trustee Starks, we're going to transition right into you with the Committee on Ways and Means that was held on November 14th.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. At the November 14th Ways and Means Committee meeting, we started with a review of the fiscal year 2022 fourth quarter trust fund report, where John Trudrin presented that the revenues and expenses for all 3 trust funds fell in line with expectations for the fourth quarter. Madam Chair Murin and John Trudrin then provided highlights from the investment subcommittee meeting from November 10, 2022. We then had our normal financial update and outlook, including a review of the most recent cash flow projection, fiscal year 2023 budget outlook, and update on fiscal forecast. Most notable, the college's projected cash balance at the end of the fiscal year will be approximately $4.9 million after taking into consideration the $6 million that will be transferred to the investment portfolio. A projected $800,000 favorable forecast is projected for versus the budget for this fiscal year. And the 4-year plan is to use $10 million from reserves to allow for a less disruptive transition to a balanced budget for fiscal year 2027. Again, fiscal year 2027. We then had a facilities discussion led by Trustee Sadler, where he shared an overview of facilities, funding sources, and projects, including a status update on the STCC and DCAM budgets. He indicated that project plans and associated spending are on track. We then finished with Dr. Cook's president perspective before adjourning the meeting.
Great, thank you so much. And John, remind me, since the investment's already in there, do we have to approve that too at the same time, or just get all Ways and Means at once, right?
I'm looking at our finance people. No, because it's already embedded. We're good.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Do I hear a motion to accept the Committee on Ways and Means November 14th minutes?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. Nanette, would you please call the roll to accept the Committee on Ways and Means November 14th meeting minutes?
Yes, Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Jenny McDonald,
Yes.
Betty Esposito, Gladys Garcia Figueroa,
Yes.
Tonya Butler Perez, Samalid Hogan,
Yes.
Phil Johnson,
Yes.
Norm Jordan,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thanks again.
Great. Thank you so much. Dr. Cook, transitioning right into your perspective.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, trustees. Trustee Starks, you had us smiling because yes, are we all paying attention to the fiscal years? This is the last trustee meeting of 2022, which is shocking. And we tip into 2023, which means we will be planning that next budget in earnest for fiscal year 24. Time does fly. It's pretty incredible. A few notes, and then I'll work on some of these items and some of the detail in the packet. Obviously, there's just continues to be a great deal of work done through the trustee committees, which is very, very helpful. Obviously, Ways and Means with all the fiscal acumen brought to those conversations is vital. And you also see trustees in internal, external. There's a lot of programmatic and operational detail that's reviewed and discussed and considered there. So I definitely encourage you to look at that. Even that video alone that we still have up on our YouTube channel from the gala really captures the sentiment of that pretty special 55th anniversary. So again, wonderful work being done within the committees. I met today with the third and final on my stops of schools regarding our Vice President of Academic Affairs search. As folks know, Dr. Geraldine DeBurley is stepping down at the end of this year. It'll be her 5th at the college. So we have really moved that forward with earnest. I've been having listening conversations again with each of the 3 schools: School of Health, School of STEM, and School of Liberal and Professional Studies. And again, getting very helpful feedback and no real surprises, quite frankly. People really looking for a leader, an individual with community college experience, and certainly somebody that can be a partner through what is, to a degree, an uncertain and uncharted road ahead for all of higher education. So just wanted to share a little bit of that. Let me tuck in. With that in mind, I wanted to put in front of the full board a little bit of the data, a little bit of the context and detail, and I'll take that next slide, that we continue to draw from for this outside in, this external look. So I happen to sit on the Mass Hire Hampden County Workforce Board. And again, it's a wonderful way to keep a finger on the pulse of the economics that surround us, the labor market. Really what you'll see in these series of charts here that we've pulled forward is especially the lower right-hand corner. That's that unemployment rate, which typically and traditionally in the past has had a pretty outsized influence on what community college enrollment does. And frankly, it's beyond our control. You'll see again from September of 2020, height of the pandemic, it just continues to track downward in our region. You'll see it's a low of 4.2%. So again, enrollment and again, employment, as you all know, given the sectors you work in, is tight. And that means people are not exactly making a beeline to STCC. So again, wanted to share that context. You can see in the top chart that dip back in COVID in terms of the sort of full participation rate of our labor market. I'll take the next slide. Again, just wanted to show and amplify some of the regional dynamics around us. We've talked a lot about some of the work we've done to look at what we call the environmental scan, the environmental landscape around what type of industry segments, jobs. What this does, well, the reason why I wanted to put this in front of you is this one really stands out because if you look, the easy thing to tell is just how dominant healthcare is. We talk a lot about RNs, registered nurses, and the ecosystem that is healthcare. If you look at these segments, and this is actually showing pre-COVID and 2022 sort of jobs. And there's some changes, but by and large, what you see is the dominance in our region of healthcare. And I think this gives a pretty clear visual and illustration. I say that because it's so relevant to the strategic planning that is ongoing right now. Again, we've got Trustee Alexa Exposito is your liaison to that workforce. We expect to be drafting and having some of that out in front of the college and certainly for trustee comment, but it will come to you for approval at some point next semester. But I would fully anticipate that we say something around the priority of healthcare. You'll see that's backstopped by data and perspective like this. So that was a little bit on the labor market outlook that I wanted to be sure you all saw. Before we move to the next agenda item, let me just see if there's any questions or comments from the board about that.
This is Bill Johnson. Dr. Cook, on this graph we're looking at right now, or whatever you want to call it, is where is the I guess what I call the traditional trades? Is that in here someplace? You know, electrical, HVAC, plumbing.
Yeah, great question.
Mechanical. You know, is that
embedded? I'm gonna guess, Trustee Johnson, that in the second column over, you'll see, and these are bigger buckets for better, for worse. So you'll see professional, scientific, and technical services. I'm guessing some of those skilled trades, just as you mentioned, electricians, HVAC technicians are going to land in that bucket.
Okay, that's what I was kind of thinking. I thought that was actually a low number for all that.
And that's what's a little eye-opening about this, is we know your boiler goes down, your furnace goes down, you need that tech to show up, everybody. We're coming into cold weather in New England, that's for sure. But to see just how outsized the healthcare industry is, I think, again, is something that we will continue to need to pay attention to as a community college. Okay, great. Again, just wanted to help amplify that and note, again, well within and embedded in the conversations we're having about strategic planning and priority setting for the college.
I'm sorry, Dr. Cook, I couldn't get off my mute fast enough. Yeah, I did. I had a question. Now, in the healthcare chart, there's a lot of lines in there inside of that. There's technical, there's support for medical, there's clinical engineering, phlebotomist, you know, all this and so on. Do you have to break down for that itself?
Yeah, we would. Again, that's what's a little unfortunate, is these are painting with broad brush strokes, for no doubt about it. And of course, even within any of these sectors, where does the IT and cyber infrastructure land? You know, there's a whole administration element to all this. So it's definitely not a perfect view. It's definitely not a perfect picture. And yes, a phlebotomist and the training required for that is going to be very different, let's say, from a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner within all of this, even though they're all in the same healthcare universe. Other questions? Comments?
Comment, I guess part of question. While the agriculture, forestry, and fishing and hunting is very low in comparison to the amount of the others, but the growth within the industry from 2019 to 2020 is so high, I'm just wondering, you know, where is our opportunity in that? I know that we have landscaping.
Yep.
I don't know, are we thinking about getting into some sort of other agriculture? Like, you know, we have several marijuana dispensaries. I'm just wondering if there's any wiggle room for STIC to get in there, considering, although it's low in comparison to the others, but the growth within the industry from year to year is higher.
No, great question. And we definitely see, if there is a number of change in the positive direction, there it is. 400 additive jobs is not necessarily 70,000, but it does get our attention, and I appreciate that, Trustee McDonald. I'm not entirely sure what goes into that figure, and if cannabis, for example, is in there, but it certainly is an aspect of horticulture, of agriculture, and yes, candidly, STIC is not in that industry, in that segment, and it calls the question. We definitely need to do one of two things. Either we need to definitely work with and partner with our faculty on some curricular aspects on the credit side, and/or we'll need to work through our non-credit continuing ed and the workforce side to think about how we stand something up to address that, because there clearly is workforce needs in those areas. Now, given our sort of metropolitan orientation, we're not Greenfield Community College in Franklin County, where the agricultural consideration is different and scaled differently there. But we've certainly had those conversations internally. And I would just say the short answer is we're a work in progress to meet that need, and especially in proportion to this, because what we're trying to do is not let healthcare just wash away any other consideration. That's not where we want to land with our priority. How do we deal with these in proportion, though, I think is part of the strategy we're going to have to figure out.
And then, like you said, with faculty and looping them in, because I know I recently learned that curriculum lives with them. And so I just think that's another barrier or consideration that, others need to think about. I know, but just, for other trustees.
We do. And again, I appreciate it, because that's the candid conversation, trustees, is we do need partnership with our faculty. And as much as we all have to stretch professionally sometimes, and we may not all be the content experts in some of these areas, the ability for us as a college to embrace opportunity, I think, is really, really important as part of this next strategic planning process. So it's important for us to say that out loud.
Dr. Cook, that's the problem with something like this, is such large silos. Like, I know, believe it or not, cannabis is actually underneath manufacturing as far as state laws. So cannabis could actually be underneath the manufacturing silo.
Yeah, and there's a ton
we don't know the key. That's the problem. We don't know but anyway.
Yeah, we have not looked closely at it. Again, there's some reasons underneath all that. But to your point, yeah, highly regulated, quality control elements to the whole thing. Again, I think there are some opportunities for us.
It's still interesting. I wouldn't have thought the healthcare and social assistance was that high. I knew it was high, but not that high.
Yes.
And yes, to think that we're still short at base with employees, hiring employees, and we're having that issue at Bay State. So, it's nuts.
And that's why, again, we just, all the conversations that land that include STCC and the need to generate more graduates for these sectors. Again, this is what it looks like in so many conversations. It's healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. It is. Yep. Well, I appreciate that feedback and perspective. Again, we'll keep showcasing, if you will, the look, and again, being sure that we are synced up, everyone, with the labor market. But just wanted to put that in front of you all tonight. Speaking of, so we'll transition. And that next slide is really just a note around the current state of strategic planning. Again, Mass Hire, Hamden County, the Workforce Board is really trying to aggregate and pull together all of, in this case, you see a column for higher education. And again, just trying to get us all sort of singing from the same songbook, if you will. That's what that last slide is. I'll move to the next slide after that. So in some ways, this is, and again, Ways and Means is quite familiar with this outlook. We've talked in that committee particularly about these, but it brings together a lot of information that we have both showcased with the college and with our employees. But again, I've put it in front of the full board just so we're all of the same mind. The enrollment trend on the left, again, I feel like we could all recite that perhaps in our sleep. We've talked about it so much. That's the enrollment decline. You'll see we start in 2015 there, but it predates those years even. But again, what has been so helpful at this college, now whether it's a floor or not, the fact that we have gone level this fall really bodes well given where we thought we were going to project, which is another year down. So again, you'll see we might just be keeping our nose above 70,000 credits there, which is really helpful, everybody. And the translation is less about, we're somehow out of the woods, because if you look at that next in the bottom right quadrant, the net cost reduction required, we have to find $1 million a year in true savings. And that's the work that we have to do internally. And that's clearly the work of our administration, is to lead those discussions. We are to the point around fiscal year 27, we need to land at sustainability in what will be 4 short fiscal years. And again, that's as opposed to trying to swallow that all at once. We've got a wonderful plan with your support because we've got a plan for the reserves and the use of that 10 million over the course of the next 4 fiscal years, but we're going to have to do internally the work to ensure that sustainability. So again, just wanted to position that front and center to say, underneath all the conversations about priorities, about the way we have been real active fiscal managers, and really trying to ensure that our programs are current and contemporary, there's that work that we're going to have to continue to do. It's not the flashiest subject, but again, we definitely have our eye keenly set on that work there. And just wanted to put that in front of the full board, and happy to pause there and see if there's any questions or comments about the fiscal landscape ahead. One small note, I'll take the next one. This is a real busy, I want to call it an infographic, although there's a lot more info than there is graphic. Again, this is the kind of work that we can have generated by our institutional research shop. And for me, this is art. This is beautiful right here. And it tells us so much. Again, let me distill it for trustees this way. If you look at our retention rate, because we spend a lot of time thinking about recruitment, we spend a lot of time thinking about marketing, we spend a lot of time thinking about our brand. But if I can shift us off that, the retention element is such a higher value proposition, dare I say. Whether we want to call it a 4-to-1, a 3-to-1 ratio, it is significant importance for us to keep the students we do have, especially when we go flat and we're bringing in a few more students this fall than we did last fall. The long and the short on this is that pre-COVID, our retention rate, and what this shows is fall to spring semester. So essentially, in a few short months, we're going to finish fall semester. Hanging on to those students, registering them again in spring is a really critical juncture for us. We have averaged about 70% fall to spring retention, pretty good for a community college. And what you see is there is some variation by our schools, and you'll actually see a pretty healthy undeclared. So these are students in high school taking dual enrollment. It only stands to reason they may not take a class in the spring. So there's a lot of movement, and it's gonna look a lot lower in that undeclared, non-matriculated. I'm home for the break. Maybe I'll take a Wintram class at STIC. But what you'll see is in these 2 COVID-inflected falls, fall of 2020 and fall of 21, and we'll see how we do, by the way, with this fall into spring, we've dipped down to about 67%. So it's not like they fell off the cliff in our efforts to retain our students, but 3 percentage points means a lot. And that's where there's opportunity. Build back to where we were. And again, with an opportunity to kind of reimagine what that looks like too, both in the classroom for faculty who really have been invited to think about projects, actions, activities to continue to engage students, asking them to demonstrate their learning, all the way to all the combined wraparound student services that we have. Just things like tutoring is far more integrated. We've talked about this in the internal external committee. It's far more integrated than it was pre-COVID. Things like that go a long, long way. And we even have some of the health programs here, and you'll see it's hard to put your finger on it. In our dental hygiene program, you'll see almost no real fall off in retention, 90+% fall to spring retention in our dental hygiene program. But in nursing, you'll see COVID, that one hurt a little bit. And some of that is nursing students, as clearly demonstrated by this data, are going to struggle when they have to take some of their courses online. But we do in many of these other programs, when students have a choice, they are still opting for online classes. And again, there's a balance to be struck there between being an access institution and really giving students choice and working with them to retain them, though, through a methodology that may not be ideal. So again, just lots of information that we continue to get our hands on and really work through on the retention side of the conversation. Again, wanted to showcase this for trustees, just so you know, this is the level of detail that we are taking a look at. Happy to pause and hear questions or comments.
Bill Johnson, I got a question. It's not really has to do with this presentation, but it has to do with attracting students and keeping them. And I apologize if I don't say it right, but when we onboard the students, they have to take like a test, and if there's a deficiency, they used to have to take like the whole course, but we shifted it so they would just take the parts that were missing. Has that been working to get? Did I say that
Significantly.
correctly, Dr.
Yeah, and
Burley?
I'll help Trustee Johnson. I'll help wrap that up. for you.
Translate that.
Yeah, no, this is the conversation, everyone, about developmental education. We are obligated by policy, even though we're an access institution, to assess reading, writing, and mathematics from all incoming students. And over the years, the Department of Higher Ed has augmented that, reformed that. So even, for example, if you have a 2.7, you graduated last year from high school, you have a 2.7 high school GPA, you don't have to deal with that assessment anymore. Just sign up, just register with us for credit-bearing college level courses. So that alone has significantly lowered the number of students pushed, dare we say, into developmental ed. We've also significantly lowered the amount of time they're going to spend in that. We've talked a lot at some of our board meetings around math in particular, and we had a innovation fellow who helped revise this, a faculty member who significantly helped us curtail that amount of time. We'll work on the stat, but off the top of my head, I remember seeing very recently that at one point in the distant past, 10, 12, maybe 13% of our credits, that much, were coming from students enrolled in developmental education courses. It's now down to like 2%. So we really have seen dramatic decreases in the amount of essentially not counting towards a degree type of credits our students are taking. So very much so, we've really pushed the boulder up that hill.
Dr. Cook, this is Jeff Sattler. I just have a question regarding that. I know that from the information that you see locally, nationally, that because of COVID, there's a number of students that had difficulty learning online, et cetera. And I know that we go into the high schools. I'd like to know what the impact on how that looks to attract more students back into the college. That's where I think it's going to take a few years to really get back on track. But I'd like to ask you if there's been any update on that effort and what the thought is there.
Yeah, I'll give you one small anecdote. And again, there has been a tremendous amount of attention paid. And we've had Vice President of Student Affairs, Darcy Kemp, talk about this with internal, external. Here's a good example. We recently, I want to say within the last 2 or 3 weeks, we had area school counselors from the high schools we invited, and we had a good turnout. I think we had maybe 15 or 16, Darcy, something like that. We got them to campus. We put them in the building behind me, the Student Learning Commons. We really showcase what that first experience is going to be for their students and their students' families. So just those types of things alone are helping pull us out of that COVID world that we were living in. We're getting them on campus. We're showing them the type of services and resources. We're really showcasing some of the assets of the college. I was thrilled. Again, these were folks who by and large had not necessarily been to campus to see these spaces before. So we are definitely checking all those boxes in the name of making sure we're reintroducing ourselves, particularly to those high schools.
Thanks.
Other questions or comments? So the last item is really a set of twofers. So as a reminder, we have NETCHI coming for a specific visit as opposed to a site visit related to accreditation at the macro level. They are coming in, and we know in March the dates. As we get closer, we'll work up what they are asking for in terms of trustee engagement. Just as we did before, it may need to coincide with a full board meeting. It will be held in open meeting. So we'll do that. We'll get to those logistics. But I wanted to share that it's the chair of the team, and it's not the full team where they have like 7 people typically. This is a team of the chair and I believe 2, maybe 3 others. But the chair is Dr. Mary Ellen Chakowski. She's the current president of Three Rivers Community College in Norwich, Connecticut. So a New England Community College president. She's been there, I think, a good 8, 9 years at this point. Is going to be the chair of that visiting team, of that site visiting team. So obviously important. We will also be preparing a report that we will ask you all to review and endorse at your January meeting in preparation for that visit in March. And it's really a just the facts kind of a report. It will include steps that we've made to clarify governance, given that's the thrust of their concern. And this is the notice of concern that they issued to the college. And we have a lot to show for that. Not only is there trustees themselves, and I know that's on the agenda for later to talk about bylaw review and potential revision. But again, your vote earlier this year to stand up a shared governance council, prior to that, to bring in a trustee to really look around all this. We had a working group, cross-representative of the college employees, included students. All that is really, really helpful in the eyes of NETCHI to see progress towards clarification of that. On that front, we do now have a website. We'll make sure that we show that, and it is public facing, that showcases the Shared Governance Council. It also includes both a place for the different governance bodies to generate and move forward a recommendation for the council to consider. But we also have two that have come forward via academic affairs, and those are also there on the website. I don't have any action to share with you. We're allowing for a lot of the process to still take place. Some of the bodies really need more time to deliberate themselves around the recommendations. These are not particularly controversial, and they're not policy. So the conclusion is not going to be, I put them in front of you for a vote of adoption. These are more protocol and operational practices that we are changing. For example, clarifying under what circumstances can a student take more than the typical credits, and what does that mean for called quote unquote credit overload, and especially wanting to be sure that there is success by those students who do that. So some of those operational policies, we have a couple in motion. So all that is to say, we've had 2 meetings this fall by the Shared Governance Council. We will continue to hold them as we need. And again, the idea is to really be generating a recommendation-based approach to governance now. And I think that's one of the most important clarifications that we have coming out of this process, is with a recommendation, I can then help put that in front of you at the very least to show what we've done with it internally, or certainly ask for your approval of that, and therefore turn that into policy. So certainly more to come, but a lot to share on that in that area of governance. Happy to take any questions or comments otherwise, but those are the perspective here in late November.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Cook. A lot of great work that has already been done. A lot more to do before we get through the end of this school year, even though the calendar year is ending. So let me transition right into my report. All of you should have received an email from Nanette today about the Community College National Legislative Summit down in DC in February. If you're interested in going, let me know. It's probably something that is really great to attend if you have time. So check that email, that's in your email. I also wanted to take the time to really thank everyone for an incredible calendar year. I know it's not at the end of the school year, but Dr. Cook, to you, your cabinet, faculty, staff, all of the hard work that you always do, the trustees, especially I wanted to call out a couple that have really helped with these quote unquote ad hoc. Jeff with the facilities, thank you so much. So important moving forward. And I won't steal your thunder, Janae, about going through the bylaws, but thank you for really kind of spearheading that. And then Betty with strategic planning, really the 3 of you going the extra mile and doing a lot of work that's needed. Just wanted to thank you. And then most important to the students. I think you got a couple more weeks before you can head home for finals. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to right now to thank everyone for all of their hard work. Wish you a very, very happy holidays and a happy new year before I transition to you, Janae, to kind of give us a little bit of an update of where we are with our bylaws revisions. We'll see if we can put you on the spot for something in January. We're going to do something in February. So let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So long story short, we have actually concluded all of the revisions based on the notice of concern. And so we started out by prioritizing those parts of the bylaws first. And then we have decided that we want to review the rest of the bylaws. So we have concluded that portion. The last meeting, we were supposed to start on the rest of the bylaws. I think it's funny that once I gave everyone some homework, no one was available for the next meeting, including myself. But however, I do now, because we are at the end of the series of meetings that I have scheduled. And so we do need to schedule another very short series to just go through the rest. We're going to find that we're going to improve a lot of our processes. Like I talked about, shortening the amount of meetings that we're having, changing the schedule in which we're doing the meetings, reorganizing when we're having our trustee retreat so that it better complements when we're doing our presidential evaluation, when the actual academic school year starts and actually being prepared for that. Things like, some other considerations that I look forward to bring before you, but relying more so on the review of the minutes of the committee reports, and maybe not necessarily having to read through the information that we all have sitting in front of us, but just some things like that. And so I think that we're well prepared to bring, something forward to NECHI about the concerns that they have had, us addressing them, and then reviewing the rest of the bylaws. We had a very active committee. We rolled our sleeves up and got a lot of work done. So looking forward to what January will bring and how we present that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Definite overachievers, right? Because the notice of concern really was to set us up about the process. As you remember, Dr. Purr talked about that. And when we had our retreat in September, it was more about the process and how we are getting to where we needed to be. We could be at the finish line. And so I think NECHI and the visit, I think we'll be in good shape, Dr. Cook, for that when come March. We might have everything kind of, the I's dotted, T's crossed, and it tied up in a bow, which would be great. We'll put more pressure on you, Janae, understanding it's the holiday season. So thank you so much. Really, really so important to continue with all the hard work we did with the faculty and staff and everyone else with accreditation.
Thank you.
Is there any new business? Anyone out there? Hearing none, our next meeting is in January 2023. I can't believe it. I know I shake my head. As I get older, time goes more quickly, which is always not a good thing. But I really do want to thank you all. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy the holidays and the new year with your friends and family, but please, please continue to be safe. And just enjoy. And I wanted to thank you all. And Dr. Cook, thank you to you and your team for all the hard work. And we will jumpstart and kind of set ourselves up in January to get us through the final of the school year.
Thanks again, everybody. I'll be sure to bridge with you. It won't be until January 30th that you next hear from me. I'll make sure that we stay closely connected. And I do enjoy my individual conversations with all of you. So we'll definitely keep that going. I can't echo that enough. Thank you all for your support and steadiness. It's been a really solid fall for this college, really steady, sturdy fall. And I think that's exactly where we just need to keep moving forward. So really appreciate the sentiment. To all of you, to our board chair, Mary Kate, thank you for your leadership. And again, that steadiness is just going to continue to carry us through next year as well. Thank you.
And last but not least, Nanette, thank you so much for keeping me organized, even remotely. I so appreciate you. And with that, do I hear a motion to end the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for Monday, November 28th?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Right, I don't think there'll be discussion. Nanette, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Mary Kate Viren,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Betty Esposito, Gladys Bed, Garcia Figueroa,
Yes.
Tonya Butler, Samali Hogan,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Norm Jordan,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone. Happy holidays. Happy
Same to
New
you.
Year.
Thank you
Be
all.
safe.
You too,
Thank you all. Happy
everybody.
New Year's.
Bye.
Be safe.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.